Welcome back to Sailing with Faith. This is the tank edition. So, leaking diesel tank. First thing was to obviously take all those hoses off and start to lift it. You can see how it was before, a lot of stain, and that's the finished product after a lot of work. So I had to take 11 gallons out of diesel. That's filling the very last little bit out of the tank. Hoses are off, and using that tool I could remove the foam as best I could to actually angle the tank out to lift it out of the boat. The tank is aluminum and it's pressure tested by the factory. It was made down in Florida, and I actually called the company to see if they're still making those tanks. They don't make them anymore, but they will supply the prints for the tanks. Kind of very high price drawings that they were selling. The engineering drawings for them was something like $270. So, I'm obviously not going to spend that kind of money on an impression of what I need. So the next step was to look at refurbishing that tank. You can see all the diesel at the bottom there. That had to all be cleaned out. Luckily it wasn't leaking into the bilges. That's a sealed fiberglass compartment, which is good. We're not polluting the environment. I was able to suck all of that out and trash it properly at the dump in the oil cans that they have for diesel. So you see the corrosion. That's just dirt, like solidified diesel and salt water and fresh water. All sorts of things have accumulated and dried on there over the years, decades. This thing is, so it's an Irwin Citation from 1985. So it's got a few years on it. You could kind of feel the grittiness of the aluminum, which to me it's kind of starting to go pitting all over it. So one of there you go, Florida Marine Tanks was the people that made it. So the first thing that I was going to do when I took it home is pressure wash it to get all of the salt and anything that's in the surface, get all of that out and clean it up basically, and just see what we've got. But generally the aluminum was solid. It felt thick. I think it's 3/8 or 1/4 inch thick, maybe not quite. It says on the label actually what it is, but it's a fairly solid aluminum. The composition of the aluminum I'll show you in a minute. The aluminum type. And there's my new floors. Got the floors in on the last video. Very pleased with how they look. So cleaning up of the whole of that area, you can see I've got all the foam out now. I do have some bilge paint, specially designed for fiberglass boats that lasts a long time. So I'm going to be cleaning all that up, washing it out and painting it with the bilge paint. Got the tank back home. You can see a lot of the corrosion and the debris on it. So there's a lot of cleaning up to do. I used a combination of wire brushes on a rotary drill and some sanding paper. Here you can see the pitting. It's all from the outside. So going along you can see some awful exterior corrosion in the aluminum. It's almost like a diseased aluminum that needed cleaning up. So there you can see it was pressure tested to 4 psi. It's 5052 aluminum alloy, which has got a high strength to weight ratio and it's good for welding. and elasticity should it need to give in any way in a vessel that's moving all the time. So I'm still doing some more cleanup outside, and once I did that, the voids that were left, I blew them out, and then I used a drill to get any debris that was in those holes out, because I intended to use a metal putty. It's a 2-part putty that you put into the aluminum, and what it'll do is bond to the aluminum and create like a rock hard filler. After that, I used a 2-part epoxy, which is much thinner, and I went over all of the rest of the tank. So there's the 2-part metal putty pushed into place, and it kind of gets quite hot as you're working it. If it's starting to get warm, you don't have a lot of time left. But once it's in place, you cannot get it off. The bond is stronger than the putty and the aluminum, so it's there for good. But just to be sure, after sanding it down, and a respite to the library. After sanding it down, the 2-part epoxy went on, and that kind of just scrapes on. It's much more liquefied, and that fills any other of the remaining holes that could have been left after the 2-part putty. It's not absolutely necessary to sand that down completely flat, but I did. I'm just that's the way I am. I like the jobs to look nice and robust, and that way after painting it you can see if there's any leaks or anything like that. So there's a finished product. I used an engineered paint, a marine paint in a spray can. I think each can was something like $32. If anybody's interested in knowing what the paints and the putties and the bonding agents that I used, just leave a note down below and I'll get back to you. This is me. I fabricated a rest because now we don't have any of the foam. I've put this rest in, and you can see it looks really nice. And the hose is all back on, filled it with diesel, and there were no leaks. So I'm very pleased with this job. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you on the next YouTube.